Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 448. I am your co-host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. The host is right there in the background. She's reading. Good night, Sumnus. Good night, Thai 6. Also, I live in Cascade and President Christine is home for the holidays and the security there is sickening. Oh, I see. That's some unfortunate stuff. But I guess they must keep the president safe, eh? Hard luck for the regulars, but the president must stay safe when she's at home. We can't have the president at danger, can we? And the people being at danger, well, certain people being at danger is exactly what the highlight of the news is. Once you're on the inside, make sure you hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on TikTok. That's how you hit the like button there. If you are viewing this on YouTube, please do hit that like button to drop a comment. Tell me what you think. It does help for the algorithm. Best for the algorithm is to share it to allow other people to see, hey, some good stuff over there. Go and take in this. So let's jump into the news and see what the news says on this lovely second day. Happy New Year. Good night, Fabian King. On this second day of the first month of 2025. Wow, I'm yawning already into 2025. And 2025 barely start. But back before 2025 started, there was unfortunately a murder right at the end of 2024 that shook up the country a bit. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Attorney killed after church hours before New Year. Yikes. Attorney Randall Hector was killed in a drive-by ambush on December 31st, mere hours before the start of the new year, even as the country is under a state of emergency. The man was on his way to his vehicle with his family when two vehicles pulled up alongside him and they did the deed. And unfortunately, he died. A pretty well-known attorney assassinated in front of his family on New Year's Eve, Old Year's night. Yikes. Hector opened his own firm, R.W. Hector and Associates, after leaving the elite intelligence agency Strategic Services Agency as its legal director. Okay. So, you know, when these things come up, there are suspected causes always all around inside here. What might it be for? What may it have been for? What might have been the reason? Why could this have happened? Well, there are suggestions all around. Now, it's interesting to me that most of these articles where they have suggestions about motives and all of that, and I am not suggesting motives here. I am reading what the news is suggesting about motives here. This isn't Nathan Springer suggesting possible motives out here. This is what the news is saying. I am merely reading. Slain attorney prosecuted gang suspect. 2024's last murder may be linked to SOE's cause. Attorney Randall Hector, who was shot dead outside the church, had once been retained by the state to prosecute a gang leader on gun charges. Police have listed the possible motive for his murder as gang-related. In January 2024, the gang leader was charged with possession of a firearm after he was allegedly held with a loaded gun. He won the case in September. Now, it's interesting to me that they have this as a possible motive for a case that the alleged leader, the community leader, has already won. this was a prosecutor in a case that he already won. And I can't read this right now, darling. You know what? We may have a special session just for me to read that. Yes, because the guy, the murdered attorney, was reportedly a special prosecutor on a gun case that the alleged gang leader faced last year. But the gun case was beaten since September. And now I recall that case, I recall that case distinctly because I remember when they held him. I will never understand how a gun case has a trial. Let me tell you, well, I don't know the details of this case. I'll preface it with that. But I remember when that case started, when they first held him with that gun. And I was saying this case makes no sense because the police went down St. Paul Street on a massive raid. St. Paul Street, in case no one knows, are apartment buildings, apartment complexes. And they're saying that this guy is the gang leader for that entire area. And they are telling us that they went down there with jeep loads of police, ran up into his apartment, and somehow still caught him with a loaded gun. I found that case when I first read about it last year. I don't know how many of you all were in the live when I first spoke about that. We could probably go back on YouTube and find that. I said since then that case was iffy, and he won the case since September. Now they're highlighting that this guy was a special prosecutor in a gun case, and they seem to be suggesting that this was one of those cases. Now, it's interesting how much they highlight the gun case part of this. Him being a prosecutor on a gun case for an alleged gang leader. But I don't see much highlight of the last piece I read in the previous article. Hector opened his firm R.W. Hector and Associates after leaving the Elite Intelligence Agency, Strategic Services Agency, as its legal director. Kevin J says everyone is suggesting and supposing. Of course, it's all a suggestion and supposition game, as it were. And I'm just reading the suggestions that the newspaper comes up with. But it's interesting that the suggestion is pointed at the gang direction. But I seem to recall that there was some very significant movements occurring along this whole Strategic Services Agency business. And the allegations coming out from that were of a very serious nature. They found Sig Sauer 9mm weapon bullets at the crime scene. Isn't the trademark of those St. Paul's do bust no little hunting and the rifle guys? So okay, I'm just reading as the news says. I don't know. I'm reading as the news says. But they highlight he was a former prosecutor in a gang case, but also he worked for the SSA. Other attorneys are speaking about this too. Break Earler's contract, Lala horrified. A senior attorney has called for an assessment of the police service leadership and removal of Police Commissioner Earler Howard Christopher if necessary, following the assassination of attorney Randall Hector. In a Facebook post yesterday, Larry Lala SC expressed horror over the fact that gunmen moved to kill Hector on Tuesday night after church, and he questioned whether police did not have intelligence that this hit was being planned. What I have difficulty understanding is how this could take place in a state of emergency, given the increased powers of the police, Lala stated. He noted that the Express reported that Hector was a special prosecutor involved in the prosecution of an alleged gang member. If this is true and the state of emergency is intended to target gangs, surely their communications and movements are being monitored by the police and army. And if so, then how was there no intelligence to inform that Mr. Hector was in danger? He asked. Very good question. If you launched a state of emergency with the intent of curbing significant brazen gang activity, and then in the midst of the SOE, the state of emergency, what many seem to suppose is a gang does a hit in our capital city, outside of a church, on a prominent attorney. What conclusion is to be drawn here except that you have lost control? Whoever it is, whether it be the gangs or whatever else, whoever it is seems to signal that you have clearly lost control. They can assassinate an attorney in the nation's capital on New Year's Eve, New Year's night, church services going on aplenty, police in the city up and down. And they could put down an assassination right there and then. You understand the signal this sends. I suppose many of you in the chat, you all would understand the signal this sends. This is telling anyone that you are reachable. If you want to put yourself in the fray, put yourself up to do some duty that may be in some way crime fighting, this is a sign to you. They can get you anyway. That's a signal. It's inescapable. And maybe I am not saying it's a good thing that the man was murdered or harmed. That's horrible. Bad thing happened. Horrible. Should not have happened. But maybe in the unfolding of this country as it is, it works to show the stage that we are at. It's not just the riffraff and the gang war and the collateral damage. No. Actually, it's high profile. It's anybody. It's anybody. That's a kind of yikesish kind of thing. That's a kind of yikesish kind of thing. That there's no escape. Another attorney speaking on the state of emergency, Israel Khan. SOE announced 2 early criminals tipped off. And this was something that I wondered about myself too. And maybe some things happened in the background that I still don't know yet. But to me, when this state of emergency was initially announced, I was wondering, I was hoping that they already had a plan in place. A plan in place that they just had to quickly implement The plan was already thought through. All the key factors were there. It's just to implement as soon as they call it. But we're a few days in now, and I see speed traps on the highway, speeding tickets. Like, this was the plan? Or are we still on plan? We just haven't seen it yet. Israel Khan SOE announced 2 early criminals tipped off. Attorney Israel Khan, Senior Counsel, head of the Criminal Bar Association, has said the government should have let the police move stealthily against criminals before publicly declaring a state of emergency, but had instead tipped off the miscreants who could now easily hide their illegal firearms. He spoke to Newsday on December 31st, the day after Acting Attorney General Stuart Young and Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines announced the SOE at a briefing. Lady Carr says, yes, they had a big plan and targets and just needed the power under the SOE. Okay, so they did have a big plan and targets. That's great. I'd like to see that. Oh, you mean you thought so? Well, I thought so too. But I apparently was mistaken. Unless the plan is still being executed and I'm just ignorant. That is a high possibility. I just don't know, and I'm speaking ignorantly here. And the senior police officers may be watching me and like, little does he know. It's all in play. It's all in play. And just the next step to fall into place, and it's all going to come cascading down. And I'll eat my words, and I'll be very happy to eat my words. It's just, as it stands right now, it doesn't feel like that's the case. It doesn't feel like all the drug blocks froze as soon as the SOE started because action started to take place. It seems like those drug blocks still have their suppliers supplying them. Petty crimes still going on. Murders apparently still going on. We haven't found any large cache of guns. They went down Sealots, they got a lot of bullets. Great. No guns. They arrested, 45 or something people so far? What's going to happen with them? And I was reading because, you know, last live we were doing, when we were talking about this, we were talking about the government looking to whether they would whether it's the same judicial system that has to take care of all of these issues. And someone was saying, well, actually they're trying to set up a tribunal, yes, a tribunal to look after anyone with complaints out of the SOE and stuff. And they're trying to get the senior attorneys to get in on it. And apparently, no senior attorneys want to. They've asked a couple senior attorneys already, and they have turned down the opportunity. What is to be taken from that? What is to be taken from that? If senior attorneys are running from this tribunal, why would they run from it? That seems interesting to me. Listen, that's just to hold the bosses and threaten them to take it down. Well, then the people who say it's just politics and a campaign move for the election season, that's their right. If it's just a matter of decreasing the heat at this very moment, but not actually putting in place any long-term solutions, then the people are right. This is a papi show. A Newsday article here, Law Association concerned over SOE gang violence. Let's look at this. Lawyers seem not to be overly enthused about it. The emergency regulations grant extensive powers to law enforcement, including detentions, restrictions on movement, and limitations on speech deemed prejudicial to public order. And now, this is where I come in. You see this restrictions on limitations on speech deemed prejudicial to public order? Officers, I have no interest in disturbing the public order. None of my words are with intent to disturb the public order. So please, leave me alone. Good night, Joy. Good night, Laters, Ronnie. All the best for the new year. All the best and happiness and all that good stuff. Happy New Year, Willie Bang. God bless you too. The regulations also provide for the setting up of a tribunal to receive complaints from anyone detained under the SOE. The Chief Justice appoints members of the tribunal. Newsday understands 3 attorneys were approached to sit on the tribunal, but 2 declined, citing conflicts of interest. 2 other senior counsel also approached, also declined. The judiciary asked for additional time to respond to Newsday's questions on the appointment of the tribunal. So a tribunal is to be set up, but apparently senior lawyers aren't interested in being members of that tribunal. And it's curious. I wonder why. Is it that it's just a contentious thing? Is it that they see themselves as possibly being able to make money off of suing the state and they don't want to be on the other side of that? What is the reason? I don't know, but it is curious to me. Why don't the lawyers want it? But even beside all of that, how can they be on the tribunal when they are lawyers for the victims? As Mr. Israel Khan, senior counsel, said, I'm waiting to see the plan unfold, and it isn't promising as it stands. I'm not seeing a promising plan. This is something that you're expecting this level of disruption. If they're doing that, they have the outlay of the entire plan already. This doesn't seem like a situation where that's the case. Joyce says, is a tribunal worth their lives? And I guess this might be another part of that. If a lawyer was murdered and they purportedly link some of that to his work in the legal field among gangs, and then you come to ask senior lawyers to put their name as members of a tribunal, when you say you are going to take away the constitutional rights of these fellas and pursue them in their gang activities. You all know the Kawhi Leonard laugh? Sounds like something to do if you don't have consideration for your future. You know? Sounds like a job that has a lot of risk to it, you know, something that is out there to test if your life insurance works or not, kind of stuff. And why would a lawyer do that? And this is what I've been saying about the communities in and of themselves, and why I disagree with like what the police commissioner and the minister of national security, and they talk about as if the communities have to lead and it's about the people and the people have to say something and stop harboring the criminals. Not that I think the people should harbor the criminals. Of course the people should not harbor the criminals, but when criminals have become so entrenched, it doesn't fall on the regular everyday people anymore, because it's out of their ability. At this point, you need law enforcement, the men with the guns, to go in there first up and neutralize threats, and then you could get the other people after to, you know, start to want to do things differently. But if the case is that the threats are so strong that even standing up against it puts you at undue risk, then who is going to stand up against it? And whose fault it is that the threats have become so strong, other than the law enforcement agencies and the state machinery behind them? Which lawyer is supposed to put their neck out there all on their own? And something I wonder about, and we're not staying too long, but something I wonder about. I am not of the view that like some of those very bitter activists who want to see harm done to their political opponents and see them feel the consequences of the dangers of Trinidad and all of that. No, that's not my view. But I wonder sometimes, in a country as dangerous as ours, if these politicians were legitimately going after crime and the criminals, I think their lives would be much more at risk. I mean, old Trumpy boy, Big Bad Orange, out yonder over in the United States, he could at least now claim with some veritas that he is attacking the elites and those who have been in power for so long, and he's trying to change it to the power of the people. He could make that argument because at least you see that somebody tried to take him out. Because if you're trying to disrupt the whole order of the way things are, no one is going to, that's something worth your life. Somebody is going to attempt to do such. One piece says these lawyers have to take blame for why them criminals do not fear jail time once they have money. But how is that the lawyer's fault? The lawyer makes an argument. The lawyer does not force the argument to stand. It's up to the courts. The courts decide whether the lawyer made a good argument or not. The lawyer could only make the argument based on what the legislature put in the law books. So before we throw all the blame at the lawyers, we have to say, well, the judiciary allows the rulings, the legislature builds the framework for the laws. So in a sense, the lawyers are just cogs in the machine. In a sense. Photo Friday asks, who is this constitution benefiting then? Well, that's the question, isn't it? And I am of the view that our constitution, as an echo from colonial times, works similarly to how colonial constitutions and colonies worked. The idea was to protect those up there from those down here and keep those down here under control. So it's about controlling the masses and protecting the upper echelons from the masses. That's how colonies functioned. And to some extent, our constitution still has some of that. The way how we see arming the population, that's some of that. Your aim is to control the people, keep the people under your control. So who does it benefit? Good question. But the thing even with that, when people talk about changing the constitution, who are you going to trust to write over a constitution that you would trust? Isn't that kind of the issue, as we were just talking about, who will guard the guard? So who is going to be that upstanding person to write over the constitution? Joy says, but they're even taking down the legislators, Nathan, unless we forget our dear Dina Sital. Well, she was similar to this guy, a lawyer, again, just another one of those lawyers. They aren't taking down the legislators. The legislators are the politicians, those in parliament. I do not want a parliamentarian to be targeted. I do not wish for such. But when last have you seen that? These guys seem like if they think you are going to disrupt their duty, their mission, they aren't afraid to take you out. And it seems like our politicians are under no real danger. What does that tell you? How effective are our politicians? A scary place, really and truly, when you think about it. When you think about it, the feeling that the crime and criminality is circling around us and kind of traps you on all sides. That the further you go up with the politicians, the criminals are up there. You go to the side of you hoping for protection from the officers, and the criminals are there. You go underneath, and well, yes, the violent criminals are down below there. On the other side, where the law is supposed to be a gate to hold them back, hold them in there, you recognize the law could be on the criminal side too. Umar says, I don't believe the accused in that case had anything to do with that hit. It too convenient. Umar, I don't disagree necessarily with you. I find also the accusations of gang relations, even in this current hit, seems very convenient too. Isn't it convenient? There's an SOE labeled for gang, and listen, I am not one of those that attempts to make victims of criminals all the time, and all the criminals are just Aladdin and Robin Hood, and they're really good-hearted. That's not my view at all. You all know that. But I do find at some point in time, aren't you all calling the guy's name a good bit? Like, at some point in time, it starts to seem a little scapegoaty. Is one person really the villain of this season of Trinidad and Tobago? We have one villain that person is doing everything. Like, that starts to seem kind of convenient after a while. No? Or is that just me? Just me? I alone find, okay, if I alone find that, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm seeing things differently, but I just find how many times you'd call one person's name. Well, isn't that convenient, Willie Bang? Isn't that all convenient? And you know, the idea of the scapegoat, at least from a religious perspective, was you could put all your sins, as it were, onto the goat, and then you sacrifice the goat and all your sins goes with the goat. Do you understand? All the blame goes on the goat. So when the goat goes, all the blame goes with the goat. I feel no one goat is responsible for all that mischief. That's just my feeling. And after a while, it starts to sound very convenient. So, unless you're coming to really prove something here, like, let's not call names and cast aspersions and all of that. Like, let's prove what we could prove and get the thing done. And let's put it this way. I'm not saying who might or might not be innocent of whatever, but I think the problems that exist in Trinidad and the nature of those problems, even if you were to somehow scapegoat that scapegoat, I don't think the crime and criminality in Trinidad is going to see peace for the next year. La Costra Nostra in this place, the Black Hand playing. Yeah, man. There are obviously dealings and wheelings that happen behind the scenes. Obviously. Above our pay grade. We'll see how the SOE ends. We'll see how the SOE ends. Anyway, Happy New Year, people. It's a new year. That's all I have for now. I hope you educated, entertained, or informed. This is Nathan Springer. This has been the Mindful Life, and I'll see you guys again for the next one. Bro, you do interviews? Yes, I do. Photo Friday? Yes, I do. It's been a while since I did one, but I do interviews, yes. Happy New Year, summer. Until the next time, folks, peace out. Laters. Have a good one. Stay safe, stay inside. Outside there sketchy. Go and marry somebody, child, and make some babies. Raise up our numbers. We're struggling. We have to up those numbers. We have some low numbers out there, folks. Make it the babies. We need new trainees. Laters. Bye. Peace.